is up, everybody? It's Dr. Vibe here, host and producer of the award-winning Dr. Vibe show. As always, I'd like to say you're blessed, highly favored, a magnet for miracles, and a solution for someone's problem. I am the 2018 Innovation Award winner by the Canadian Ethnic Media Association, and we are back with another epic conversation because this is the home of epic conversations, and I'm the host of Epic Conversations. It is nasty, nasty weather day here in Toronto. Snow, ice, freezing rain, everything. They closed every school in Toronto by 8 o'clock this morning. It was just miserable. And speaking about education, we have a friend of the Dr. Vibe show, but a friend of many people now, as I told her before she came back in the world of social media. Lauriann Wade, otherwise known as LA Wade, is in the house. And tonight, she's going to talk about or share about tonight something that she's been a part of for many years that I had no idea of until we reconnected a little while back. It's a plan called the Transitional Year Programme at the University of Toronto. But what I'm going to do is have LA share a little bit about herself for those who don't know her yet, because it seems that more and more people are knowing her. So LA, how you doing this evening?
I was just mentioning prior to the show starting how happy I am to be snowed in. There's nothing better than an adult snow day. So when the university finally decided to close its doors, it was really great to be at home, light some candles, eat a whole pizza to myself, which not recommended every day, but every now and then you can treat yourself. So I'm just enjoying the surprise day off that I had today.
Excellent. That is fantastic. Well, let's talk a little bit. Well, you know what? Just share a little bit about yourself before we get into the TYP.
Myself. What can I say? So in relation to the program, the Transitional Year Program is something that allows for people who don't have the normal qualifications or the formal qualifications to get into the university, but have always wanted to go. And so in 2004, 2005, I had never gone to university before. It was always a dream of mine. And I learned about the Transitional Year Program that same year in 2004. It was very easy to apply to the program, which we'll get into a little bit later. But once I did apply and I got accepted, I was really shocked that I would be at this Ivy level conglomerate known as the University of Toronto. It's just one of those, it's often referred to as the Harvard of Canada. And so it was nice to be recognized by that institution for some reason. And so once doing the Transitional Year Program, it was 8 months of intensive study, but they kind of prepare you to go on into doing a full degree at the University of Toronto. And I went on to do that degree in sociology and religious studies, and then went on to do my master's in the sociology and equity studies of education. And right after my master's, I was hired as the registrar for the Transitional Year Program. So I've been there for 10 years this year, actually. I was able to do my TYP, my undergrad, and my master's in 4.5 years. So people are always shocked by that. But there's ways if you get organized.
Okay. Many things we gotta unpack here, and we gotta shout out Dre, Sonia, and Keenan, who are watching this live on the Get Vocal platform. You've blown away Dre going, what? Sheesh. Well, you got to realize something about LA. When she's ready, she don't play. So
when I'm ready.
When you're ready. I want to cycle back. What was preventing you in the past to get into university?
You want to know what I was doing prior to going to university?
Well, no. What was preventing you? Like you were going to university. You wanted to go to university, but it wasn't happening before you found out about this program. What were the barriers?
I mean, I was 16 at the time that I left home. I ran away from home. Well, I didn't run away because I kind of actually was very mature about it and sat down with my mom and said, this isn't kind of working for me and I'm going to try it on my own. And so at least she wasn't panicked looking for me. And I remember leaving, finding a basement apartment, and having school become less and less important because I needed to pay bills for the first time in my life. and I was working a lot of retail jobs. And I would often get promoted because I have what I like to tell my students, the unteachables. I know how to have a job. I know how to do well in a job. So I had that unteachable aspect. What I didn't have is the education to move any further up in any company that I ever worked for. So while I was a valued employee, I was also hitting a ceiling because they just weren't able to, well, they could probably, but they weren't willing to do that without having some paper. And so what I did, I had been living in California for about a year. And what happened in California was that I ended up taking a domestic violence counselor's coaching certification. And being in school, really, it became something that I fell in love with again. I love learning. I think people are the best people to help. People are the best at helping you learn by strictly just observing them. And I had a really great time learning about the fundamentals of what drives behavior, and not to have a savior complex. They often told us in training to actually hang up your cape because there was nobody that you could save here. But I often told students that when I found out about school, that I put on the cape again and I kind of saved myself. And that's what education can do for you.
Excellent. Who, before we go any further, Dre is like going, my goodness, I'm working on my second master's and I have been in school full time for 8 straight years. LOL.
That's okay. It doesn't matter how long it takes you to get there. I just felt like my son was 2 going on 3 at the time I decided to go into TYP, and I just wanted to get it over with. I felt like I had enough time being a child because I left home at 16. So those were many years of partying. I was 31 when I went back to school. So it was okay to do it quickly because I wanted to get my life on track for where it's going.
So yeah. What was the decision like to say, I want to go back to school at 31 years old?
It was difficult because I don't know how it is in other people's homes, but I come from a Caribbean home. My mom is from Grenada and I love her to death. So all of the things that I'm going to say about my mom that may not seem positive, we worked on our relationship and I love her very much. So she just made it difficult for me to go back to school in the sense that she would be on me about, you have to take care of your child. What are you doing? Why are you going to school? You have to take care of the baby, blah, blah, blah. And I knew that I was doing it for him. I was going back to school and taking 8 months of my life and dedicating it to seeing what was possible because there was a lot of doubt. Because I had never gone, I was credit shy of graduating from high school. I wasn't sure if I was going to be able to go to university. And when this opportunity presented itself, how could I not go? It was going to change the trajectory of my life.
How did you find out about the TYP?
So back in 97, 98, 99, I was doing something out here called Blueprint for Life. And Blueprint for Life was this hip hop edutainment seminar that we would do in high schools in Toronto. So we would go in, and the 4 of Blueprint for Life represented the 4 elements of hip hop. And I would bring the MCs and the break dancers and the DJs, and even had a graffiti exhibit up on stage. And I would facilitate this kind of conversation between people that students were looking up to and the people in the audience, and also the educators who wanted to bridge the gap between how they were teaching and this new phenomenon that was taking over called hip hop. It was infiltrating into like curriculums and things like that. So I used to host all of those things. And one time, somebody by the name of Eric Garingas, who was a documentary filmmaker, he had done a documentary on Blueprint for Life. Just a mini documentary. It was about 10 minutes long, and which reminds me I need to get that footage back from him. But he told me, he met me when I came back from California and said, when are we going to get you to school? You are much too intelligent to not go to school. And I said, I didn't graduate from high school. And he said, have you ever heard of the Transitional Year Program? And that's how I learned about TYP.
Excellent. How long has the program been around for?
This summer will be 50 years that they started a summer mentorship program. Yeah, it was started by some Black graduate students who wanted to increase their presence of Black and Indigenous people into the university system. In fact, TYP's first class had the University of Toronto see its first women allowed to go to school there. So TYP not only helped Black and Indigenous students, it also helped many women get to school for the first time in that history. So 50 years ago, this summer will be when that first summer mentorship program took off.
Well, congratulations on being part of the 50 years.
I know, it's so bizarre to think that I'm a part of this legacy because we take in around 65 to 75 students every year. And, you know, I don't know the math. You better do somebody to do the math out there. But 65 to 75 students over 50 years, we've impacted a lot of people's lives. And not just the students who participated, but their families, because a lot of TYP doesn't really need to do hard advertising because it becomes almost generational. In our community, unfortunately, there's a lot of people that are first generations to university and post-secondary schooling. And so having somebody come through the program, it's almost like a generational thing where it reaches back and allows so many more people to explore.
Do you remember the first day you were part of the program?
That's such a nice question because I often sit back and reminisce when I look at the new students coming in and I'm on the other side of the table. I want to see if they were thinking similar things that I was thinking. And what happens is, for me, when you get your student card, it says, you know, the University of Toronto, it has your name, your student ID, and, you know, all of this other basic information that's on there. And I remember sitting while everybody was talking at the orientation amongst themselves. I remember finding a quiet corner and just looking down at the card and staring at it really hard, thinking, is that me under the name University of Toronto? That wasn't something that I thought I would ever see. I didn't even know how to dream that. Because in Toronto, when you go to the University of Toronto, if your average is not in the high 80, 85 to 90 range, you don't actually get in to that school. And that's if you completed high school. So here I am, 16 high school dropout. I hardly went to school as it was, so my attendance was awful. My grades on my transcript would be terrible. But I did go, and I did get in. And it was shocking to see myself pictured with such a legacy of academic prestige. I wasn't sure how I would do, you know? I wasn't sure how I would do.
Well, okay, so it was back then, was it still an 8-month intensive thing when you took it?
Yeah, it was an 8-month intensive program when I took it back then. So my year was 2004, 2005. So, yeah.
Just sharing your experience, how many other students of color were there in the program when you were in TYP?
I had a class of about 75 students, and I would say that there were it was probably a good 60-40 split with people of color versus non-melanated people, as you like to say, Dr. Vibe.
Well, we'll put it that way. Greetings to Roger Dundas of Buy Blacks. Thanks for stopping by.
Hey, Definitely. Buy Blacks. I'm all about that. Can you put your information in the comment section, Mr. Buy Black? I want to buy black.
It's Canada's most viewed online publication for Black Canadians.
That's amazing, because I would love to know the statistics around what Killer Mike was talking about in the US about the black dollar circulating for only 6 hours in its community and his attempt to live black for 3 days. I wonder how far I would get if I tried to do that in Canada.
Less.
Yes, I'd be in even more trouble. He talked about white economy withdrawal. I think that's what I would have.
Excellent. Getting back to the TYP, what? So, do you remember your day you graduated?
Yes, I do. It was very special to me, my graduation. My mom kind of downplayed the fact that oh well, this isn't really your university graduation. This is just the TYP graduation, which for me, even now being a registrar there, it was so much more impactful and meaningful because of what you sacrificed, what you survived mentally. And when I talk about mentally, I lived for 31 years prior to going back to school. And so I accumulated a lot of knowledge that I think works for me up until a certain point. And then you enter into school and everything gets turned on its head. And you have to go through a series of questioning around who are you? Do you belong here? What is this thing called education? It's something that kind of turns you around. And so I am very excited when our students are graduating from the program, because many students about in December will drop out. The pressure of, and it's not that it's too hard, but many people around Christmas, and I'll explain that in more detail in a little bit, the fear overtakes them, and the non-belief in themselves or family circumstances, financial circumstances, many of these types of things, these intersections, force them out of school. And so to survive, to get to graduation through all of those pitfalls is a big deal. And so when I went to my graduation, I was also the valedictorian.
Congratulations.
Thank you. In fact, it was really cool to be named valedictorian, because the day we voted for who it would be, the woman at the front of the room, her name was Rona Abramovich. She was our TYP director at that time. And she looks out and she says, okay, every year we nominate the valedictorian. And what happened from there is she said, can I get a nomination? And somebody said, I nominate LA. And then there was this roar behind me, because of course I used to sit in the front seat because I'm such a keener. But I heard this roar of everybody kind of chanting my name and putting up their hand. And then she says, okay, maybe this is a better question. Is there anyone who isn't voting for LA? And then there's dead silence. So she said, I never saw a TYP class in its history unanimously vote for the valedictorian before. So I took that as, I took that as a sign that I was doing something right, that I had done the right thing, and that people believed in me and thought that I had something to offer them in terms of leaving them with something on this very special day that we all sojourned together. And the day of the graduation, my son was with me, and he got to see his mother, celebrated. He got to understand what that was all about and be there with me. And as I gave my valedictory speech, I actually brought him up with me, and I sat him on the podium, and I asked him to hold my cards for my speech. And I don't even think he remembers this. Anyway, he was quite enthralled with the mic. And I just remember looking down at him and kind of feeling teary-eyed, because in a sense, this was both of our graduation. We had done this together, and I had done it for him. And it was a special moment. You're bringing me back now. So it was a special moment. And in my speech to the students, I don't know where I saw this, so I can't claim it as mine, but somebody was talking about a pencil, that when you hold a pencil in your hand, if you hold it for too long, you might forget that it's there. And then you're just moving your hand around and this pencil's in your hand. We forget that we can put the pencil down, we can switch hands with the pencil. And many times we use if the pencil was an analogy or a metaphor for something, it could be the things in our life that are problems or things that have held us back. And we're holding on to it, and we forget that it's separate from us. We begin to think that it's a part of us because we forget that we're holding on to it for so long. So in the speech, I reminded them that this transition into the University of Toronto, you can let go of that pencil. You can switch hands and you can pick it up anytime you need it, because there are things in our past that we do need in order to move forward. And so that was a big part of the transitional year for me. And it accumulated into this wonderful moment that I got to share with my son in particular.
Were you nervous at all making that speech?
I've always kind of had a boldness. I feel a little bit more intimidated one-on-one. And also it depends on the audience. For my audience to have selected me unanimously, I didn't feel any fear. I felt love, and I wanted to radiate it back to them.
Very nice. Now, I know it's separate from the TYP, but you continued your education intensely after that too.
Yeah, I wanted to, as they say, get her done. I didn't want to prolong what I had prolonged for so long. I was 31, as I said, and I wanted to get through it. And so a big part of making that happen was becoming organized about it. So understanding what it was that I was going to major in, writing out all the variable courses that I could take to complete that major within my 2 disciplines, and just constantly checking it off and scratching it off as I went down my list. It was like a countdown. And so that helped me motivate. Like if I'm in the gym, I want to, like, if they say 10 more, you need to count that down for me. I don't want to count up. I want to count down. And so when I was doing my degree, I knew I needed 20 credits to graduate. I got 2.5 by going through TYP. So it was just a countdown from there. And looking at all of the requirements that was needed, I kept moving myself through that process.
Dre wanted to know, in regards to your being named valedictorian of your class, was it an open nomination or was it just students or faculty?
It was just students. I went on to win a number of faculty awards also. I won the President's Award. I had the valedictorian award. I won the Literature Award. I had a lot of awards, actually. I won the National Book Scholarship, which is something that I had to apply to win because I was going for the National Scholarship, which is typically given to high school students. So maybe they couldn't justify giving it to a 31-year-old mother, but I was nominated for that nonetheless. And that was a grueling process, but I ended up walking away with the National Book Award for that. So yeah, I had both my peers voting for me for certain awards, and then also the faculty members recognizing me for the work that I had done academically.
Excellent. Just want to shout it here on the Get Vocal platform. Hello, Don. Hope you're doing good. And on YouTube, we have You Foresight. With the you had mentioned earlier on that a lot of students, actually no, I'll save that for later. So what is the program consist of? So if I came to you or someone younger came to you and said, okay, what is your program all about? What are the qualifications? Can you break it down for us?
Yeah, I can break it down for you. So what happens is you decide you want to go back to school. That's usually the best entry point. You want to go back to school. And then from there, we want to determine if you're eligible. So if you're eligible to go to TYP, it means that you may or may not have graduated from high school. You are probably 19 by September 30th of the year you want to go, at least 19. You can be as old as you like to come back to school. And we actively seek members of the African Canadian, Black Canadian, Caribbean Canadian community, along with the Indigenous community. And then all of the other marginalized people would fall into place after we are kind of like looking for the people who are the most disadvantaged. And at the end of the day, if you're having an oppressive or marginalized experience in a university and you happen to go to university, there have been cases where we have also accepted people who have been traumatized by a result of being in an institution that doesn't recognize their difference or give it, any strength or power. And so those are the people who are eligible to come to the program. And then what you're doing is you're entering into 8 months of intensive full-time schoolwork. And how they break it down, you go to school Monday to Friday. You don't start any later than 10 a.m. And you don't really stay there past 4 p.m. But you do have to choose one of 5 option courses which belong to the Faculty of Arts and Science. And when any number of those courses could be scheduled at a different time. So there could be, for instance, sociology this year was 6 to 8 p.m. So there is a chance of you staying till 8 p.m. on one day of the week. The rest of it, you could end at 12 or 2 or 4. So that's how you spend the week. The days are broken down by different courses. So Mondays are typically English composition, and if you chose Indigenous Studies as your arts and science course, then that's what you're doing Monday. Tuesday is quantitative reasoning, which is like a math literacy course. It kind of gets you prepared to pass your breath requirement in the university. And then there's a number of option courses like Caribbean Studies or Plants and Society, Evolutionary Biology. There's a sociology course. There is an Indigenous Equity Studies course. So there's one of 5 courses that you would choose from. And so different people in our group would choose which course they want to do in terms of the arts and science course. But outside of that, there are core TYP courses that get you ready for where you want to go. And that's English composition, quantitative reasoning, literature, and math. Sorry, science, reasoning and the science. And then I now get to teach the course University Studies, which was a course.
Oh,
Well, that's a course that allows you to learn the balance between your personal life and your academic life, and all of the things that are needed for those two worlds to work together.
Kinte is saying if I went to high school with L.A. Wade, I would have sat next to her in class and cheat off her paper.
Oh, we would fail together, my friend, because I did not do well in high school.
Oh my goodness. So it sounds like a very intense 8 months.
It is intense. It's intense because you're coming into it with all of your experiences that you've gathered in your life up until adulthood, and then flipping it on the table and on its head and trying to figure out where you belong. I remember keeping a journal when I went to school, to TYP. And around October, I remember really doubting why I was there. Is this possible? What am I doing here? I don't belong here. And I think every student kind of goes through that kind of personality crisis on whether or not they belong in an institution like U of T because of its prestige and its historical referencing.
Well, I just want to greet on the Periscope side, Nella Bruce.
Hey,
Welcome to
Nella.
And also like to welcome on the Get Vocal platform, Yamoja. Thank you so much for stopping by.
Hi.
Dre has a question here. How is it compared to what GED is in the United States?
So that's a really great question, Dre. The Transitional Year Program is not a high school equivalency. It is a university program. We do have GED programs here also for people who haven't completed high school. And if you get a GED, you can come to the Transitional Year Program. But even if you didn't, you could still possibly get into the Transitional Year Program. It's not a requirement to have that education going on in order to get in. So we work with people. So for instance, when you're applying, what you're doing is you're filling out an application form, and then you are getting your transcript from any schooling that you've had prior. You're getting 2 people to write letters of references for you. And it's always good to have somebody write from any previous academics, work experience, but we'll also take 2 personal references. And then the most important part of your application is something called the personal statement. And that's where you're telling your story as to what happened. Why didn't you go into university before? What was the disruption that took place in your life that leads you now to the Transitional Year Program? So you talk about the past, and then you want to really focus on where you are currently. It's really important to come back to school when you are stable. You don't want to come back to school as, a way to buy time in between, like welfare checks or something like that, which some students try to do. And it becomes a disaster because OSAP, which is the funding that you get when you're in Ontario to go back to school, is a loan, and you have to eventually pay that back. And so if you treat it as if it's just government money that's being given to you, you could end up with a high amount of debt when you are leaving the institution. So your application, your transcripts, your 2 letters of reference, your personal statement, and then we now do something called a writing sample. We never had this during my time, but there's a tremendous increase in the amount of people from conventional refugee status who are coming from different countries and they have English as a second language. And so because our program is only 8 months old, we're not sure if we're going to be able to get them to where they need to be in order to complete a degree within only 8 months. So we do a writing sample. It's not necessarily looking at all of your grammar and things like that. It's more, how do you conceptualize and present an idea? And we give you a list of maybe 4 topics and you choose one and you write about that. That's how the writing sample works. I hope that
okay. Before we continue on the with the conversation, I'd like to shout out Tatiana, Dr. Tachi, who is an incredible educator who has her PhD in communications from Howard University. And if you want to catch her tomorrow night, 9 p.m. Eastern time, herself and Leah Miller will be on the Dr. Vibe show. We do something most Wednesdays at 9 p.m. called Black Lady Magic. So they rock the house.
Magic instead of the black girl.
Yeah.
I get it totally.
Yeah. So that is good. Now, what is the cause for, you had mentioned earlier on about students dropping out. What reason, are there common reasons why they're dropping out of the program?
Yeah, life gets in the way. I always tell the students that TYP, any kind of schooling, is not about how smart you are. That plays into it, but it's not the end all and be all. What is most important is how organized and how disciplined you can be in regards to attaining your education. So I may not be the smartest or brightest student, but if you give me something that I need to organize in order to learn it, then it makes it that much easier for me to interact with the material, because grouping things into certain categories allows you to interact with it in a very powerful way that will stay with you. Kind of like when you ask people the chunking, where you say, oh, what are the names of the Great Lakes? And then you're able to do the combs, and then you know that it's Huron, Ontario, Michigan, Erie, Superior. Doing things like that is how I got through school. I just chunked them into different categories, and I had a really great study habit that I'm now able to pass on to students coming into the program.
Nice. How are people finding out about the program these days?
Well, it's a shift now. We used to go into community centers, and we still do. We still go into community organizations and do things like that. But we're finding that more and more of the demographic that we're trying to reach is online. And so it's better for us to have a visibility online. This being the upcoming year for our 50th year this summer, we decided to get a publicist for our program. Shout out to Fenella of FKB Media, who is really helping us reach an audience that we've always wanted, but wasn't sure how to address them, particularly with the changes from people hanging out in one place to people hanging out globally. I mean, look at everybody in here. We're all from different places, but we're all coming together around a topic or an idea. And hopefully people in this room will know others that may possibly live in Toronto or within Canada, because you don't have to only be from Toronto to come to this program. We accept people from everywhere. It might be more difficult if you're across the border. However, anywhere in Canada, you're able to come to this program and do well.
In your position, and I've had the opportunity and blessing to come by your office once or twice, are you as much a registrar as you are as a mentor coach?
Oh, my position at TYP is not what it says on paper. So on paper, I do financial advising, academic advising, I do recruitment, I do a lot of administrative tasks. I'm a supervisor to the program assistant and the program secretary. I'm the catch-all for all of the faculty members. So as you can see, it starts to expand. I do wear many hats, Kinte. and it kind of overwhelms. But again, I think it's that whole thing about how I like to organize myself that's what's allowed me to be there for 10 years, because I have a lot of pulls and demands on me from the faculty members to the administration to the students to the alumni to students in the general arts and sciences that hear there's a Black woman who's a registrar at the university, because I think I'm the only one that's ever been there in the history of the university. I'm the only Black female registrar. And so people will come and interact with me there. And the university itself, the administration and the different departments of the university also. I'm like the nucleus of the program. Even like the publicist. For some reason, that just became now a part of my job, to be the focal point for the for the publicist to generate everything. It's just another thing that I take on, because TYP, although it's a part of this large institution called the University of Toronto, it is an autonomous group. And we fought for our autonomy because a big part of our program is being able to meet students where they are. It's not a number system, although they all have their student numbers and nobody knows that they're TYP students unless they're asked. But we are a smaller unit. U of T has 30,000 students in the downtown campus alone. So we have about 75 students every year that I'm responsible for. But because they go on into the university, they never actually leave home, so to speak. They always bring their dirty laundry back to me to wash them and send them back out there. So I'm constantly interacting with many different people at many different levels. So I'm LA to both the new student coming in, and I'm LA to the provost of the university.
It sounds like you have, back in the day, there was In Living Color, and there was the Headley family, and it's like, LA, you got 6 jobs, lady?
I have way more than 6 jobs. It is a lot. It's a lot. And just like you said, people come by and they hang out in my office, which just adds another complexity to doing the job itself, because people need something from me, and I know what it's like to go through that program. So I allow a lot of things that I'm sure the university would want me to create more definite boundaries with students and things like that. But non-traditional students need a non-traditional registrar. And that's why I'm so proud to be that person, because I know how to work with the administration, but I also know where to meet the students that were like me, who are coming from so many different backgrounds. And this element of non-judgment that I've been gifted with because of my growing up has allowed me to connect with all kinds of people that come into that program. So no one ever feels like LA doesn't understand, or LA only loves the Black students. Everyone feels loved equally by me, because I love everyone equally. And I believe in what they're doing and turning their life around.
Fantastic. Fantastic. How have the students changed over the years, if any? Have they been basically the same sort of challenges, or do you see a shift because you have a ground level look at the future? Right. These young people going through the TYP, yeah. Have they changed any, or have they been basically the same? Now, I'm not generalizing, your same sort of things over the years.
Oh, I'm not generalizing at all. We do some type of demographic work, and our students are getting younger. They're students younger and younger, because I think that, and I think it's probably the same in the States, there's a culture of pushing our students out. They're not really dropouts, they're push-outs. And they don't feel like they belong in the education system, but then once they go out and they've been away from school for at least a year, they start to want to get a job, or they start thinking about their future a little bit more, and then they realize, oh man, I messed up. But I never think of it that way. I don't think of it as they messed up. I think of it as they were being prepared. They were being prepared to go on to better things, because maybe when you go back to school later, you're at a better place and you're more engaged with it, and you would go further than if you had just gone straight and followed the path that's laid out for you.
Fantastic. Are you seeing more and more students of color applying?
No, I'm seeing a drop in that. Oh. Yeah, no, I'm seeing a massive drop in that. And this is part of why we want to go online, because
right.
We want Black and Indigenous students to come to this program. It's for them. Our curriculum, although they are the basics in terms of what you're learning, they are specifically social justice based. We have Black professors and Indigenous professors there so that you see yourself reflected in the program that you're coming through. Right now, I'm the registrar, I'm a Black woman. The assistant director is a Black woman who also heads academic success, Ms. Janelle Joseph. The director of the program is a Black male named Lance McCready, who's actually from Brooklyn originally.
Yes, great individual.
Yeah.
Great individual, Lance McCready.
Absolutely. And then even our administrator is a Black male from Jamaica, and our program secretary is Venezuelan, and and the math professor is from Ghana, and the science professor is from Kenya. One of the English composition teachers are from Barbados. We have this unique mixture of people that are dedicated to coming to school and helping students get from one side to the next. What are you laughing at? What did Dre say?
Dre said people from the U.S. relocate to Canada.
That happened already.
Dre, they can still do it until we build our wall.
Canada would never build a wall. Oh my goodness. No, but that's another conversation altogether. But let's get back to like the composition here. So why do you feel there is a reduction in people of color applying for your program? I've wrestled with this question for the last few years. I don't know. I think that we are becoming more cynical with what education can provide. And the narrative of you go to school and you get a job is kind of redundant in this day and age. And so people are wondering, why would I go to school and then get into all that debt and not be able to get hired for anything and pay it off? So it sounds like, why would you say that? Are you trying to get people to go to school? But that's the reality of the situation. That's what they're worried about. Now, up until, I would say 2 years ago, when they changed the rules where if you applied for student funding, the Ontario government made it so that you would get your tuition paid for if you made $50,000 or less. And now with Ford in power, they are changing that and taking away the grant portion or reducing it and increasing the loan portion once again. And so this is yet another reason why students aren't willing to come back to school. How I counter that, or what I would say to somebody who is thinking like that, is that you have to invest in yourself. You have to do something different to get a different result. And it's not about coming in and getting a job necessarily, but it's about coming in and learning different skill sets, learning how to critically think, how to critically engage, how to create and innovate, how to interact with technology so that people can see what you have to bring to the table, provide solutions. U of T is a huge research institution. That's what they pride themselves on. You could be the next whatever, fill in the blank. And if you don't take that opportunity to do that, then you'll just remain where you are. And not to say that you can't try and put together a business from where you are. It's just that you learn a certain skill set. And I think the time frame that you spend, it's like, I guess it's kind of like being in jail, where you spend enough time that by the end of it, you now have something at the end. And it's because you spent that time learning something. Malcolm Gladwell says it takes 10,000 hours to become an expert. So it doesn't take 10,000 hours to become a student. However, you do have to go through a certain amount of time in order to come out on the other side with some knowledge that you can help change the trajectory of your own life.
It's interesting. Social Steph says, I'm not investing $80K to be an English teacher. And she says, only engineering or medical school so you can earn enough to pay that stuff off before you die.
Yeah. I mean, if that's where you're going. But if you're not going in the direction of medical or engineering, you don't have to only just be an English teacher. There are so many different businesses. Being online has changed the game. There's so many different things that you can do to create a career for yourself based on your own innovation and creativity that becomes a little bit easier to implement when you have an education behind you. It also helps you in terms of your networks and the allies that you can create for people who have more or are getting into those positions that come from families that have something. Someone said, oh, Lord, like jail. But it is. I mean,
Yeah.
the school to jail pipeline is not a myth. It's something that exists. And we're trying to disrupt that. In fact, TYP also encourages people who have been incarcerated to come to our program. And we specifically look for ways in which that people that are going through that can learn entrepreneurial skills, or at least find vocations that can work with the fact that they have been incarcerated at one point. We also work with the John Howard Society to find out how do we go through the process of expunging records. And sometimes people need that kind of assistance. The one thing I'll say about TYP in particular is that, yes, you're taking out more loan, but our program, since it's been around for 50 years, has banked a lot of money from people who have donated to our students over the years. And so our students are often able to apply for grants to help bridge some of that. And I like to connect students with financial advisors so that when they do finish school, they are not in a position of massive debt with no way out. Again, that's a disciplinary thing. So those that actually listen to what I have to say in regards to that come out much better on the other side. If you are a TYP student and go on to graduate from the University of Toronto, we give you $5,000 to $7,000 just for graduating. Now, what if that becomes a nice little down payment on a condo for some of our students that helps them start a new life? Or maybe it pays for part of their PhD or their master's. These are things that we want to do so that you don't feel stuck when you finish school.
Of course, Kinte puts in, why do I want to say PYT instead of TYP?
Because the registrar is PYT and she works at TYP, Kinte. Don't be silly.
Shame. And Kinte says, true that.
That's so funny. But everyone does that. Everyone does PYT. Boogie does it. All my friends that have heard about this program calls it PYT.
In your capacity, do you ever communicate with the parents of either current students or prospective students, and what sort of interactions, if you do you have with their parents?
So I'm distracted. I hear what you're saying, but Keenan is saying, what about their comment? So I didn't see what their comment was.
He said, so you might still work at McDonald's. Be humble, people.
You will be the burger flipping philosopher and nobody could touch you. But you may be writing a book and then everybody wants to know what your wisdom is. So you just don't know how it's gonna turn out. I hope that answers your question, Keenan.
Yeah, so Steph says Americans are more cynical about debt. Don says relevant courses to specific careers is what many find on Udemy and other online locations.
To that point, I'll say that, there's nothing wrong with coming to TYP to help gain some type of practical academic skill, but also they don't have to go to the University of Toronto. They can go to any college or university after I have done our program, and they can become empowered to do anything. And so I don't want to underestimate the power of trades in terms of education, especially electricians, carpenters, even law is a type of trade. I see the IT world as a kind of trade. And so computer science, if you do a little bit of upgrading with your math, you're more than able to go in and dominate in that field. And connecting people with the community who are thriving in that environment is a big deal for us, because that's how we make the networking connection.
How has TYP changed since you started?
Well, when I was in TYP, there were 10 full-time faculty, and we could go to any of those professors. We're all assigned an academic advisor, and so the students and the academic advisors are professors that are in their fields. And so you feel well taken care of, and you feel like you can talk about the things that you're going through with these people. They become like extended parents to us in a sense. And so you can go to any of the professors. Now we only have 4 full-time faculty and 2 directors that are cross-appointed into other departments. Most of the professors that are there now are cross-appointed somewhere else, or they are just sessional lecturers, which means that they have to really hustle to be teaching other courses in order to make a regular salary.
Wow.
Yeah, and it kind of, I think it impacts how the program's success rates are affected, because where you would have a lot of people really engaged with everyone creating community, the cuts to budget and things like that have limited how much access students have to professors. And for non-traditional students, that's kind of their lifeline, because they don't trust easily, and they've developed a relationship in this small institution that we've created for them, and they feel most comfortable there. And so it's hard. And my office is getting the overflow because they're looking for those bodies that used to be there to assist them.
So I just want to stay on that a little bit further. So is the TYP program getting cuts in regards to funding? And if it is, why is that so?
Because it's expensive to educate a non-traditional student. At the end of the day, it's really expensive. The way I see it is, though, it's more expensive to not educate them, because that's when they become more of a drain on the system, if they don't have the education to try and make something for themselves or get hired or create jobs, etc. So it might be the same way that they want us to do long-term planning. They need to do long-term planning and seeing that it's beneficial to invest in a non-traditional student than it is to leave them. And especially because most of them are first generation, and the domino effect that can happen in their family, it can really make an impact on generational poverty.
That is concerning. Really and truly. No, I'm being very serious here, because I see the value of this program.
Yeah.
And to see it getting not getting the funding it deserves and needs is very concerning, because, for lack of a better term, these are individuals who, if it wasn't for programs like yourself, wouldn't have that opportunity.
Yeah. We had an Indigenous student who at one point in his life had been homeless, and he came into the program eventually after about a couple of years after that time, went on to do political science and international relations, and took on the summer abroad experiences, went to Australia and New Zealand and Japan and Africa. He traveled so much because there's so much grant money available for these kind of experiences, and all of those things give you credit towards your degree. He's now our first TYP student who's in his 3rd year of medical school. I mean, how can we not have this program? Because he will then become a doctor, and he's Indigenous. So the amount of people that he's going to be able to impact and be in front of and be able to say, hey, this is the program that did this for me. He'll understand the people that are coming to him, because he is the people that are coming to him.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
That's just one success story. I mean, there's so many.
Catch up here on the Periscope end. What is up, Natalie Crew? Up on Get Vocal.
Hey.
What's up, Badges? What's up, Bobby? Thank you. And on the comments end on the Get Vocal platform, Keenan saying, congratulations to your cause. I really respect people who empower others for their future success. So Steph says, my friend is an adjunct at Howard this semester teaching a PhD course in educational policy writing, and their writing is terrible. So I don't know where that fits in, but so Steph, I never ignore your comments. So I always make sure that they're in there.
Well, thank you, Keenan. And in regards to Steph, it's interesting that you say that, because there are many people who go on to get their degree that really are very poor writers. And the beauty of the Transitional Year Program is that we have English professors dedicated to training you on how to write academic pieces, being really meticulous around your MLA or APA style bibliographies, just structuring of how to present everything. So maybe your PhD student should come up to the TYP and sit in on the class. People can survey the classes anytime they like. We have lots of people who just sit in and get the knowledge from the professors we have.
Well, it's interesting. So Steph mentioned a friend that at Howard University, and Dr. Tachi, who's watching us on Periscope, she's a graduate she has her PhD in communications from Howard. And plus, my father is a graduate of Howard University.
Oh boy,
so
Howard's in the house.
There you go. The Buffaloes. And so Steph says, yeah, that was my point. Seems like you guys have the right training in regards to writing.
Yeah, and even right now, we're looking at just how you said, how have things changed over the years. We are currently looking at how do we revise the curriculum to be more reflective of current times also. So we have a committee of professors and administrators and getting advice, because a big part of TYP is our access and equity. Equity is a big deal in our program. So how do we integrate that into the social justice curriculum that we want to deliver, along with the skills that they need to acquire in order to move on? That's always being looked at.
And I know many people, when they hear that word equity, that they would think that she's just talking it. No, LA rolls and lives with it at her level. So she's not just talking it. It's the real deal. I have seen this lady in action, and if you've seen her on Get Vocal, you've seen her in action. So she's not playing when it comes to equity.
Yeah, no, equity is kind of like my modus operandi. Everyone deserves to be treated fairly, and that looks different for everybody. We're all individuals, and so some people need certain accommodations. We don't want to enable anyone, but because you have to learn how to become the professional student, and there's an accountability and a responsibility for that student. However, when you come from non-traditional backgrounds, you could be coming with trauma. You could be coming with financial difficulties. You may not know where you're going to live. And for me to treat every one of those people the same would be providing a disjustice to them, an injustice to them that doesn't allow them to thrive if those needs are met. So because when those needs are met, those people are able to do amazing things and they surprise themselves.
Excellent. Mm-hmm. Excellent. People, if anyone has any more comments or they want to step in, because it's interesting, because every one of our viewers except one on all these platforms is from the United States. Only Roger Dundas is here from Canada. I know Roger, he lives, but everyone else is from the US. And it's just interesting. Oh, Social Steph said, I needed this program. I consider myself pretty smart, but I hated college. Yeah. There you go.
Oh man, this program changed my life. And you go into school. I was 15 years or more that when I went back to the program, when I went to school again, and I didn't know if I was smart enough. I didn't know how I was going to do. So I just promised myself to show up every day, just like as if it was my job. And that's what we try to do as part of the orientation also, is create like a package as if you got hired by a job, and your job has certain things and expectations of you. And then you just learn what those expectations are, and you meet with your academic advisor, or it would be your supervisor, and you check to see if you are working through those things. So you get to where you need to be and you become that professional student, which then rallies into you becoming a professional, period.
Something I want to roll back. I don't think you had a chance to share with us. I had asked a few moments ago, do you have any conversations with the parents of any of these in the application process or while they're going through? Because that's a job in itself.
Listen, you are not lying. Though some of the parents, I try not to interact with the parents, because this is an adult program. It's not for the parents
or significant
their children. Yeah, their children's journey into schooling. So yes, unfortunately, there are times where the parent wants the student to go to school more than the student themselves. And in those situations, I have to be very honest with people and let them know that the student is who I need to be interacting with. We need that person to become engaged, because that is also a predictor of how well a student is going to do. If the parent is kind of pushing them and the student isn't necessarily ready, I always tell that student to come back when you're ready. Because not everybody's ready at the same time. You know, something that I haven't mentioned about the program, slightly related to what we're talking about right now, is that if you are having difficulty because of learning disabilities or traumas, or you don't know you have a learning disability and you're just having this impact, what happens is you can go into our accessibility services department at U of T, become assessed, and you and the counselor can work out whether or not they believe you should complete the program over 2 years or 1. And doing it over 2 years allows you to reduce your course load. So you don't necessarily have to go to school every day. You can take a reduction in your course load. I can show you how to keep going and still end up in the same place as if you did it in 1 year, even though you're doing it over 2 years. So some people might think that they're going to lose time. I can show you how you won't lose time if you're willing to work with me. I'm a very engaged, hands-on type of registrar. And so I want, for every time you tell yourself you can't do something, I want to show you at least 2 or 3 ways that you can.
And I will back up Ellie on that. I have seen her in action on that. So don't worry, I'm not a graduate of the TYP. I'm a graduate of the PYT LA Wade course, you know? That's what I'm a graduate of. Let me ask too, when you found out about this program, were there other programs like this being offered by universities? Because now I see different universities offering something similar, but was the U of T one of the first, at least in Canada, to offer this?
Yeah, we were one of the first programs to do a transitional year program. Very close to us was a program out of Dalhousie in Halifax, Nova Scotia, who they do a transitional year program. So our 2 programs are the same. University of Toronto also has an access bridging program, which is a part of a college. And this is confusing because I'm talking to the US people mostly. But the idea is the University of Toronto has 30,000 students in its downtown campus. We also have 2 satellite schools in Scarborough, which you may have heard.
Yay!
Scarborough. So you might have heard Drake referencing Scarborough. And then on the other side, on the west side, is Mississauga, which you may have heard Obama reference in one of his speeches when he first became president. But anyway, we have locations in those 3 areas. The one downtown, because of 30,000 people being a part of it, they break it down into 7 colleges. They're not actual colleges. They just call it colleges. I don't know why. But it's to house certain departments and programs and to facilitate students administratively. So there are 7 of them on campus. And that's what helps organize all of the students. So our students will choose which one they want to go to when they complete the transitional year program. What were you asking me that made me say that? I can't remember.
About, I don't know. We just transited about the parents and hearing people, taking advice, etc. So, no. What I was asking you was, other universities, were they offering this when you started? When you found out that?
Yeah, you got me. Okay. So in Woodsworth College, one of the 7 colleges is the academic bridging program, and because it's a part of that college, it has different rules than TYP. It's also better for, let's say, somebody who's working already and in a full-time job that's kind of like a career track. If they want to go back to school, that's a better option for them. It's for students who don't need kind of a hands-on experience in helping them learn how to learn and how to become amazing university students. Because getting your degree is like a marathon, and TYP is marathon training, whereas academic bridging is more like sprinting. So if you are going to burn out, you may not want to go to academic bridging. In fact, many people who fail academic bridging end up becoming TYP students, and then they're able to adjust at a better pace. It's all about pacing.
Yes. So Steph said she went to the University of Houston.
Nice.
She said everything came easy to me, so my study habits were terrible. And she said, unfortunately, she wanted to go to Howard or Zay. University of Houston has a fresh start program for non-traditional students where you can get your bad grades removed after 8 years away.
Oh, okay. I mean, at least it has an option. When I went to Atlanta, I visited Morehouse, and I was like, so do you have an I was thinking, oh, it's a Black school. Maybe you'll have a program. And they don't, because of the way that the funding structure is in the U.S. I think it really limits their capabilities and doesn't allow for things like that. But if anybody knows how I can get in touch with people like Jay-Z, and I have a platform that they could use to help a lot of Black people go to school, and we can set up TYPs all throughout the U.S. in the way that it's functioned for over the 50 years that it's worked here in Canada. That would be so amazing to see.
I think you may want to chat with me offline about this, because I know that at least one person that's watching this, Dr. Tachi, she is a member of a sorority, and she is very, her and her sorors are very well connected right across in regards to helping students, especially up and coming students.
It's amazing that you say that, because we have, like I was saying, 50 years of students who have gone through the program and that have gone on to do amazing things, but we don't have that sorority and fraternity connection through our program. And I often wondered if there could be some type of peer mentoring with some of these Black colleges, or just colleges and universities who have, they didn't have a Black student association at Morehouse because it's a Black school. We have a Black student association here. I remember also feeling really at ease going in Morehouse because almost everybody that worked there was also Black. It's just something that I guess I realized that I go through a lot of trauma working there because I am the only Black woman there. Hi, Tony.
So let me ask then, is there any sort of alumni association set up for the TYP at all?
It's been loose, and we need somebody who's passionate enough to lead it and make it happen, and a structure. We need a template. So, and it can't be traditional, because if traditional things kind of bypass our students, it doesn't work well that way.
Right.
Yeah.
And so Steph, thank you for always sharing great information. She said, once you hit academic probation suspension in the U.S., you can't get federal funding. So it's a wrap if you can't self-pay.
And for people from our communities, the likelihood of that happening is so high. And so these are the ways that they push us out. We don't drop out, we get pushed out.
Absolutely.
Professor George Day from the Ontario Institute for Studies in Education, who speaks a lot about that in his work. Push out.
True.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I don't want to keep you on for too much longer because you've got to drive tomorrow.
I do, through this snow and ice and wind.
Yeah, yes. LA has about a 5-hour drive tomorrow to Ottawa, and that's not going to be pleasant.
No, but I'll be safe, and I can't wait to share some of my knowledge with people there in person.
I have a favor to us, and
thank you.
If best case scenario, let's look at best case scenario. If the program was running at its full efficiency, what would it look like for you?
We would get back our 10 faculty members. They would have the ability to become tenured like they did before, because there's too much precariousness in the people who are working there, which allows for the students to feel a little bit unstable. We would continue to have funding. We would own a building, and we would be able to have housing options for people as they go through at least their transitional year, so that they are stabilized, so that they can get a great education in a stable place. I would run a breakfast program. I would find a way for us to have a daycare that the students who come as single parents are able to facilitate and utilize that so that they're able to go to school. We would create mentoring programs. I would create the sororities. I would create connections to global networks that would enable a lot of sharing in terms of knowledge and experience. Experiential learning is everything to me. and having it be, and that's the only way it's going to become fair, is because if you have that experience, you're going to be able to facilitate your environment better. We have something at U of T called the co-curricular record, and the idea is while you're going to school, oftentimes you graduate and then they say you can't get hired because you don't have experience. And so when you're at university, there are many things that you do that could be seen as something valuable experience. So they've called it the co-curricular record, so that when you graduate, you get your transcript, you can apply for the job, and you get your co-curricular record, which shows all of the things that you volunteered for, or the student group that you were associated with, your position that you did in that event or that organization, as experience to the job that you are applying for. So these are the things that we want to get people involved in. You didn't ask me this, but one of my most memorable moments at TYP is when I was a registrar and I created a summer abroad experience to bring those students to Grenada, my home, and got to share the island of Grenada with them through the lens, through an academic lens, which it was hard for me because it's my home. To see someone being researched is hard, but aside from that, it was a great experience because they got credit towards their degree for living in paradise for 6 weeks. And that was one of my proudest moments, because the country that my mom worked so hard when she left, what she left it for was for me to be able to create new experiences, and to bring that back full circle was hands down one of my most favorite moments of being a part of this program.
So you have some questions here. One question here is from Steph. She actually has two. What about students that are transitioning from prison system? Do they apply, or do you seek these kinds of students?
Both. They can apply if they want. They can apply from inside. They can call me Colette, and I can have information sessions over the phone with them. I'm trying to create a program where we do some things through correspondence, so that people, when they come out of the incarcerated experience, they can go right into the University of Toronto if I can get this going. So that was the first part. And we do seek them out. I try to connect with parole officers and halfway houses, criminal lawyers, so that we can find out who are the clients that they're working with that they realize have potential and that they're just lost and need some direction. In fact, students who have been incarcerated are some of our most successful students in the program, probably because they're used to following certain rules from being inside all the time, but also they don't have anything else to lose. They're giving it their all because they recognize the opportunity in front of them.
Well, it's interesting. When you have time, I actually can shortcut for you in that, because I do know some organizations that work, especially with Black fathers who are coming out of prison.
Oh, bring them.
And and I also deal with a gentleman who's a family lawyer who deals with Black fathers, who refers them to the organization I work with. So we can certainly chat about that offline. Dre is saying, how can I sign up for that class?
Dre, you know what? Don't worry about the class. If you want, I can take you to Grenada. I have a list that's growing of people who would like to go to Grenada. I will be your personal tour guide. I drive when I'm there. I have all of the connections. We would have a blast. I often think about opening like a tourism business on the side and just saying, come travel Grenada with me. And like, we just hang out at a house. We do it.
So you really want to have 0 hours of sleep from the one you're getting.
That's like breathing. Right? Going to Grenada is not work. It is breathing. It is life.
Okay.
So we'll talk about that offline, guys. I see the both of you. Let's do it.
Yeah. So Steph says, I'm on the board at Institute for Higher Education Policy doing data analysis, particularly around this population. And I'm always looking for data. So Steph, you should touch base with me, because I have some people probably from the Toronto area that you could probably get some data from myself in regards to, especially Black fathers, in regards to that. So certainly reach out to me.
Also Steph at Howard?
Pardon me?
Is she at Howard doing that research?
No. It's something called the Institute for higher education
because
policy.
there's a professor at Howard that is doing a lot of work with incarcerated individuals, specifically incarcerated women, and breaking the narrative around it's going to be generational. If the parent goes to jail, then the children will go to jail. And she's organizing this big sleepover for children and their parents, their mothers that are in prison, so that they get that opportunity to spend together. It's a really great work.
She says her friend teaches at Howard.
Oh.
And Natalie Cruz also saying, sign me up for Grenada.
You guys, I'm so serious. I'm going to give you my email.
She's also saying to definitely connect with the hip hop #HipHopEd community on Twitter. Their weekly chat is actually tonight at 9 p.m. Eastern time.
Yeah, so put your information so that we can connect. I would love to know about that.
Okay, so Natalie Crew, I'm going to give you her Twitter handle right here, right now.
I'm so surprised nobody wanted to join into the room. Oh, let me.
I guess we intimidate them. I don't know. Maybe we're two Torontonians and the Americans don't like us, so they just want to stay off on the side, right?
Are you kidding me? They love us.
Oh, here we go. Your boyfriend is coming.
Kinte? Dre. Okay, I didn't know what you were doing. I'm glamorous. Kinte's my shy guy.
Afraid. Let me come on here and say no one from America is afraid.
That's all right.
Yeah.
Dre.
But all right, so the plans are for this summer?
You know what? We have a group trying to get together for May. There's a big chocolate festival in May that we want to go to. Yes. Grenada is really known for its cocoa. So it does a tree to bar operation, and it's the most amazing organic chocolate you've ever had in your life, because they make it with the fruit that's within the cocoa pod with the actual cocoa. Yeah. I know, I can't believe I'm talking about this. This is awesome.
Right. I couldn't even do May. See, when you're a teacher, it doesn't work.
Right. But you only can't you get a substitute for 10 days?
Yeah, I could.
You know.
Yeah.
Okay.
Something.
I'm gonna end this part of the conversation because we're going way up. So this is gonna be a whole. We're gonna close out here. Dre, stay on.
Okay.
No problem. We can take this on the after chat. So LA, again, thanks for taking time out of your positive, productive schedule from hardly eating and being all over the place, and at least being at home today to share with us. If people want to find out more information about TYP, yourself, how can they do that?
You can Google Transitional Year Programme, University of Toronto. It's easier than giving the website. And you can always follow me on Twitter, which is LA Wade 6. And on Instagram, I have This Is LA Wade. I do a podcast on Sundays, which will turn into a monthly podcast. But it's called The Elephant Room TV. And there's so many ways to you can call my office, 417-878-7832. It's fine. It's my office number. We can collect calls. It's totally fine. What we do here at TYP, we make it equitable. Thanks, Dr. Rai, for putting up the website.
And not only that, though, but she also is one of 3 powerhouse ladies that host and do an epic conversation. They're on hiatus for a few weeks, but it's called the All Our Own Show. And it's 3 Black women, Gen X, and they talk about everything from daddy issues to mommy issues to the lack of Black women when it comes to feminism. They do not play. Oh, yes. Well, shout out to Boogie as well also.
Yeah,
so,
I can't hear you.
And this way, a year ago, LA was totally away from the social media space.
That's right.
So she is back, and she's back with fire. So I'd like to say a few things. First, I'm going to thank everyone who jumped in. And if I forget your name, it's because of my mind, not my heart. Of course, we got Dre, we got Kinte, we've got Roger Dundas, we've got Tony Davis, we got Bobby, we got So Steph, we got Kinte, we got Don, we've got Sonia. On the Periscope side, Natalie Crew, Miss Queen Troublemaker, Tachiata. We also had You for Sight. Just in regards to Tachiata, I'll promote her because she is outstanding. Tachiata does an incredible weekly online conversation. Well, she does two, but the one I remember off the top of my head the most is called Mediascope. It's a look at media, tech, and pop culture. It's on every Wednesday evening, or most Wednesday evenings, 5 p.m. She does a warm up on the Instagram, and then 6 p.m. on Eastern time, they go to Periscope and Facebook Live. It is an outstanding conversation about media, tech, and pop culture, and they have so much fun. And I know she does another conversation called TV Channeling, but I don't know exactly when it's on, so I'm not going to go any further. Other than that, I just say here, U Foresight says much love and respect. I am Dr. Vibe. And also Tatiana is on tomorrow night with Leah Miller on Black Lady Magic, 9 p.m. Eastern time on the Get Vocal platform. I can't remember exactly what. Oh, they're going to be talking about Black History Month and how can we get it more in our educational systems. So definitely catch it tomorrow night. And those ladies do not play either.
I bet.
I've told you about Tatiana, what she does, and Leah Mura works for the U.S. government in the foreign service capacity. And at the present time, she's learning Armenian because she's going to be living in Armenian by the end of this year for a year with her family. So, and if you want to catch replays, they're all over the Dr. Vibe site. So I'm rambling, so I'm going to make it real quick here. If you want to catch replays, audio or video-wise of my epic conversations, go to the drvibeshow.com. If the other audio platforms, Stitcher Radio, TuneIn Radio, Google Play Music, iHeartRadio, selected audio replays at thegoodmenproject.com, WJMS Radio out of New York, and Mile High Radio out of Denver, Colorado. I could say some other stuff, but I'm just not going to ramble on. Just go to the website, get it all done, and within the next 3 weeks, I'll be announcing another new initiative. All I will say about it is a Cross Canada initiative. And I'll leave it at that for now, but something new, because I don't want you guys to get bored. So, like I say, few last things before I go out. Live your life as a dream. If you can dream it, you can make it. Next up, sometimes you have to get small to get stronger. Finally, block assumptions. And then we like to say, I'll just pull it up here because I like to include it. Aim bigger, aim better, aim higher, aim wider. And I don't know if I said thanks to Kinte also, but I want to make sure I mentioned him because something tells me I forgot to mention Kinte. So, Dr. Vibe, home of the Epic Conversations, host of Epic Conversations. God bless, peace be well, and walk good. Thank you, everybody. Stay on if you want to come on for a little after show after. God bless, peace be well, and keep the faith. Good night from Denmark. Bye, John.
Oh, wonderful.